Alright, it would seem that we are in fact live. Good. So, welcome to the Britics Productions live stream number 7. If this goes like the last one did, it's going to be lagging a lot, especially in the start, probably through most of it. So yeah, that's the thing that happens. um, so usually I have music on in the background. Hello, one person. Hello. Since you just got here, this is probably gonna be a really laggy stream, so just to let you know that there's not much I can do about it. Anyway, yes, usually I have background music in my streams, and usually that background music is supposed to be under the ideas of not copyright, but as I've noticed with my past streams, that doesn't seem to be the thing. It seems to all be getting a lot of it seems to be getting copyright. Not in a bad way, not a strike, but I'm just tired of it. So, no music. And okay. Now one thing, this is like a ground rules type of thing, is that this channel is not about politics or current events, so don't ask about it. I'm aware of what's happening. We're not here to talk about it, though. So, keep that in mind. Anyway, some of the things that I do have to talk about, probably things that are more interest to me, but that's fine, because that's what I'm about, talking about things that I like. So let's start with the first bit of news that I had seen. That they officially revealed the next Transformers movie masterpiece figure, being Ratchet from the 2007 Transformers movie, of course. I mean, he looks, from the images I had seen, he looks like Ratchet, the information that I had found on it said it is 37 points of articulation and a 67-step transformation, which I thought is a lot, but, I don't own any of the movie masterpiece figures. I'm kind of okay with that. But anyway, yeah. And I guess there's speculation that it's going to be $119, which doesn't surprise me. But I guess the more interesting thing I found was a podcast that was speculating on what they would do for the next movie masterpiece figure. I thought, because they were speculating on, what to do next from the 2007 movie, and I just thought, well, because they were saying either Bone Crusher or Blackout. But yeah, I guess it's a nice thing that we're at least getting, though, a movie masterpiece Ratchet. For people who wanted one. I don't collect those ones. I don't even have that many of the G1 masterpiece figures. It's a lot to keep up with sometimes. And it gets expensive. The other thing that I had found is that excuse me, is that excuse me. is that Lego has revealed their Lego Technic Lamborghini. I don't know what the name of the Lamborghini, like which model of Lamborghini it is. But I don't know why they did this, but they made it green. And it's like, why did you pick green? I mean, maybe it's because green is like a very exotic car color, especially the lime, like a lime green. But I've seen the pictures of this Lamborghini and they look horrendous. Okay, horrendous is probably overstating it. But it just doesn't look very good in my opinion. I don't know why green, but hey, whatever. Yeah, I suppose this stream's actually doing a little better than the last one right now. But I never hold out hope. One thing I did want to say, and this will be like a bit of a kind of like a preview, if you want to say, to an upcoming video that that I'm doing. Because I'm doing a video on the war stories from Battlefield 5. Its campaign, they call war stories, like in Battlefield 1. And I have a video that I haven't put it out yet, but I still need to record that. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. This game's campaign was. What? Okay. Okay. Anyway. So, Battlefield 5 it's a World War II game. And, it has 4 parts to its campaign, which they call war stories, like they did in Battlefield 1. And I personally find that the war stories in Battlefield 5 actually had more of an impact than the ones in Battlefield 1 did. And I mean, they both of the games, the war stories, try to go for that documentary feel, and that's fine. That's fine. That's not like a bad thing in my view. But need one more. But the last war story in Battlefield 5, it's called The Last Tiger. And what is interesting about it is that you play on the German side of the war. You are a German officer, and you're part of a Tiger tank crew, Tiger 1 tank crew. Now, I don't remember, I'm sure they did. I don't remember what your officer character's name was. I remember the driver's name was Kurt. I don't remember the gunner's name, and there was the new recruit type character whose name was Hartman. And now, what makes it interesting, this part of it, is that they don't make it so that, they didn't make this campaign part in an effort to try to, like, idolize, or, not idolize, glorify, that's the word. They didn't try to glorify the Germans. They didn't try to make them look heroic in any way. And so, I guess I should actually explain this campaign part. It's set in 1945. Which is the late stages of World War II, which is about the point when Germany is losing. It's the point when Germany is losing. And that's what's important here, is to know that. So when you start the mission, the war story, you're driving through like a destroyed town, right? And you see, and this was all cutscene stuff, you see some, I think it was a group of like 4 or 5 German soldiers who had been labeled as deserters. And so they had signs and stuff on them. I don't know, obviously, what the signs would say. Probably something deserters, right? And so then in another cutscene, your tank crew has escaped from getting shelled from the air by tank buster planes, and they I say a lot. And so they have to send out one of their crew to scout a route for the tank to go. And the gunner character, he suggests that you send Hartman out. And now they definitely show Hartman as the new recruit, in the beginning cutscene. He's trying to load tank shells, and he keeps dropping them, and his whole body is shaking. You know, he's terrified of having to go and fight this war and be in this tank crew. They do a really good job of showing that. So, and you know, your commander character, you don't, you know, this is a cutscene, you're not making decisions here. He doesn't want to, and Kurtz, the driver guy, is even like, no, don't send Hartman, you know, he'll just get killed, he can't handle himself out there. But you know what you have to do, so your character tells Hartman to go out there anyway. And I mean, this part was a bit odd because Hartman goes out there and, you know, going through some rubble, and then this smoke engulfs him, and then he disappears, and you and your crew just go on their way. It's like, alright, cool. I guess, you know, no one cares about what happened to Hartman. And so anyway, next cutscene, you roll into headquarters, German headquarters, and you see all along the upper areas of headquarters, you see the ones that had been labeled deserters. You know, they had the signs on them, but they had been strung up and hung. And as your tank crew is rolling through headquarters, you stop at one point because you see Hartman had been strung up and labeled a deserter. And it really, really sticks with your commander. You know, he looks up there, and one of your crew's like, man, he was a deserter, and your commander guy is like, no, he was just like us. He did what he was told. And so then, in like the final part of this war story, you you get, or you know, you realize that you're the last tank crew out there. And so, of course, the Ally forces, you know, the Ally tanks start to show up. And so, of course, gameplay-wise, there's this big section of, you know, killing all these tanks and stuff and blowing them up. And then once you do that, it tells you to rejoin with the main force, the main German force. And then as you're approaching this bridge, you know, there's an explosion, and then it, you know, everything fades out. And then final cutscene is where things get really interesting, because you know, the tank is now damaged beyond repair. And so what happens is that your driver, Kurtz, he gets out of the tank, right? Barely alive. Let's just say your whole crew barely alive, right? Well, I shouldn't say barely alive, but lucky to be alive. And so Kurtz basically tells you as the commander character that, you know, y'all have been lied to, which he's referring to the fact that Germany was losing the war. Yet no one could say it because obviously look at how they treat their deserters, right? People labeled as deserters, they string them up and they get labeled as deserters and hanged for it. And so Kurtz turns around and is about to walk off when the gunner character shoots him. Plainly and simply shoots him. And the gunner pops up out of the tank and says that, oh, he was a deserter, and, we're stronger together. That's what you, the commander, had said. And your commander, kind of goes off the rails and is yelling Kurtz's name and gets up and goes over to Kurtz and holds Kurtz's now dead body. And then as this is happening, the Allied forces start bearing down on you and attacking. The tank gunner starts shooting at them. Your officer guy is still holding Kurtz's body, and then he puts it down and turns to the Allied forces, and he puts his hands up, so, tries to surrender. And well, the gunner guy ain't gonna have it, so as the screen fades to black, you hear as the tank gunner shoots the officer for being a deserter. It's just, and I'm probably not good at telling this whole story, in a manner that makes it sound interesting. You kind of have to play it to experience it, but I, for one, found it interesting that, this is how, or what I assume, this is what I assume is how things were in Germany, in the latter parts of the war. And, they knew that they were losing, but they weren't allowed to say it. And if they did, I mean, look what happened to them. They were killed for thinking that Germany was losing the war. And like I said, the developers didn't try to glorify Germany. They didn't try to make them look heroic or anything. And I think it really works. I read some article about this and how the developers actually took a lot of risk with this campaign, this part of the campaign. Because of the fact that they didn't want to make Germany to look better than, to make them look heroic or glorify the actions of this tank crew. And I think it really worked. I mean, to me, it was probably the best part of the campaign, getting to see things from the other side. Because that's not something you get to experience often in a game, is what things were like on the other side. I would say that if you ever get the chance to pick up and play Battlefield 5, I would do it. I think it's well worth it, especially for that one mission alone. Really, really makes you feel something. It was sad. I will say that. It was kind of sad. But anyway, it was overall a pretty, I don't know how to explain it. It was a good game, though. Battlefield 5, I thought, was a good game. I haven't played that many World War II games. And so it was nice, and it was different. I think that's what I liked the most about Battlefield 5, is that it was different. You get a lot of the older World War II games, and even the newer ones like Call of Duty World War II, that they all start with the D-Day landing. And it's just like, okay, yeah, I get it. I understand it was a big deal for America, the D-Day landing. I understand it. But I'm also like, that's boring. How many older World War II games all do the same thing? It's always the D-Day landing that we start with. And Battlefield 5 doesn't do that. It wasn't even part of the campaign or the war stories. D-Day landing was not a part of the war stories, and I was like, hey, this is kind of nice. Not having to retread something we've seen in plenty of World War II games. I actually remember seeing, it was a comment on a video actually about Battlefield 5, that this person was apparently disappointed in the single player, and their comment said something about how it's like, they understand that they were trying to go for the lesser known parts of like the lesser known battles of World War II, and that, you know, all of these people are heroes and everything, but like, you know, they would have loved to see what they could have done with something like the D-Day landing. And I'm just like, aren't you, you know, because this was my thinking when I read this comment, and my thinking now too, because why the heck am I talking about it? You know, I wanted to just be like, aren't you not tired of the D-Day landing though? Haven't we done that enough? Okay, I'll be right back. I have to go bathroom real quick. But anyway, and this person who was commenting on this, you know, named a few other of the more well-known battles of World War II as examples as well. And again, it's like, okay, but haven't we gotten that in other games? I don't know. I think it's, you know, obviously it's a personal thing, because, like, I get tired of games that have to retread the same ground over and over, you know. The D-Day landing. Okay. Haven't we done that in a bazillion other games before? Like, you know, that, I don't know, it's just my opinion. I mean, even movies. How many World War II movies have the D-Day landing? Again, I understand its importance, but I think that when it's overdone, we should give it a rest. Always lagging, aren't you, YouTube? Yeah, there's a lot of silence since I can't use music.